Dobravec. Sorry. Yes. He's a biologist, and he's working in this field as a long time. He has been for 2 decades as a researcher at the Triglav National Park. It's
correct, yes.
Yes. I've Googled it, it's very lovely, and I think it's a good, necessary job to do. And since 2010, he changed and works as a researcher at the NGO Jarina Association. Yeah. In 2015, he participated in active role in the official Slovenian translation of Pope Francis' encyclica Laudato Si. We already heard of it. And he had now finished a study. It's called Human Nature Interrelationships in Wonder Tales of the European Traditions. And this study will be published in 2024, and I think you will tell us a little bit about this.
Yes, in late this year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, thank you. Thank you for to the chair for this presentation. Perhaps. Oh, sorry. No, doesn't work. It's okay. It's okay. Perhaps it's not a custom at such academical gatherings to enter the presentation with a prayer. Also, my profession is far from being a priest or a church officer. Actually, I am an organist in the church, but it's just my kind of hobby. Anyhow, I would like you to meditate the deepness of the following text, originally written in Old Neapolitanian dialect in about 1630s by Giambattista Basile. We want the heavens to follow its European text. Be careful. We want the heavens to follow our rules, and because we want things to go our way, we don't dig deep enough to see if what we are wishing for is good or bad, useful or dangerous. When it rains or snows in winter, we wish the dark days of summer, and for August, we wish it to pour down rain. We don't think that if this happened, the seasons would be turned upside down. Seeds would be lost, harvests would fail, our bodies would be eaten by worms, and nature would have her legs kicked out from under her. So let the heavens go their own way, since trees were made to do just that, to keep the cold out in winter with their wood and the heat out in summer with their branches. Oral tradition of all cultures reflects a profound spiritual heritage. From an environmental perspective, I'm a biologist by profession, their motifs not only encompass animals, plants, and ecosystems, let's say sea or forest and so on, but more crucially, convey the idea of human nature sustainability. Wonder tales, in particular, animate human lives and impact us from the very start of our spiritual development. By observing and understanding the motives, listeners of the past societies gained familiarity with the social knowledge and values. Similarly, today's children, by listening, reading, or even watching quality TV adaptations of the Wonder Tales, get the ideas of interconnectedness of the society they live. In other words, a kind of simplified moral directives of what is good and what is bad or evil. As heard at the beginning, The Giambattista Basile tale Limisi, the months, from the collection Il Pentamerone, teach us to let the heavens go their own way, since trees were made to do just that, to keep the cold and to keep the heat when the proper season. This profound contemplation illustrates concepts from the early 17th century, a period often perceived as one when environmentalism was not a focus of work or thoughts. The protagonist of Basile's story, a simple man, Lise, actually answered to a tricky question. What say you, peasant, about the recent times? What can you tell me? Lisa's answer combined the possible consequences of interference between man and nature, the wisdom of acceptance, and a lesson in humility. More precisely, the passage concludes by advocating the acceptance of nature's course. It suggests that we should allow the heavens to follow their own rhythm, recognizing that the seasons are designed to provide our needs. It also serves as a reminder that humans are not masters of the natural world. Our attempts to control it often emerge from a deficiency of understanding of its complexity. By accepting the cyclical nature of the seasons and the delicate balance of nature, we can better appreciate the beauty and wisdom of the world around us. 12 mesecev, or in English, 12 months, is a narrative variant with similar intermotives to Basile's The Months. The wonder tale is well known in Slavic region of Central Europe, such as Slovakia, Ukraine, and Slovenia. It conveys the same idea of humans being rewarded for performing the right tasks in the right season. In 3 episodes, perhaps you know that story. The first part of the story follows Helen and her mother, who sent their stepsister, Marushka, to gather violets, strawberries, and apples during the winter months. Being kind to so-called wise men, who are named after the months of the year, she receives the fruits with the assistance of March, July, and October. Helen, as expected for antagonist, fails the same test because she is hostile towards the wise men. Unfortunately, folklorists categorize this narrative to the group of the kind and unkind girls. Perhaps you know that folklorists have a huge index of fairy tales and other narrative genres, and this tale is categorized into kind and unkind girls. As exclusive focus on human relations appears to divert scholars and readers' attention away from the other potential connotations. In some variants, indeed, the strawberry motif is emphasized. However, as Limisi mentioned above, the nature-inclusive and sustainable viewpoint would undoubtedly imply the well-known importance of time and seasons to storytellers and their audiences. I believe let us proceed to examine an even more fascinating and explicitly colorful example from the well-known collection of fairy tales, namely Kinder- und Hausmärchen by Brother Grimm's. Under the number 19, the fisherman and his wife illustrates how the greedy desire for wealth and political power might lead to the progressive degradation of the environment, transforming it from clear water to ultimate disaster with the black sky, thunder, and lightning. The story on the fisherman and his wife enters with the fisherman, who, after years of calmly catching fish for food day by day, hooks an unusual flounder, a fish, kind of fish. The magical animal begs him to let it go, with promise to fulfill him whatever he wishes. A man in his daily routine has no ideas over his present way of life. But after the old man lets the fish go, his wife orders him to go back to the water and make a wish to the flounder for a cottage to replace their dirty shack. The flounder gives her what she wants, but in later episodes, she wants a stone building and a castle, then to be a king, then an emperor with servants and soldiers, then a pope sitting on the golden throne, and finally to become like God. Their life keeps getting better, but every time the wife makes a new request, the surrounding nature looks darker and scarier. As the fisherman makes his last trip back to the sea, a terrible storm with thunder, lightning and earthquakes starts. The flounder has reached the limits of its generosity and responds, "Go home, go to the beginning." And they were sitting in their dirty shack again. If we observe the general structure of the story, anyone might see the catastrophic alternations in the water and ecosystems that people's greed and foolishness may have produced. Everyone is also convinced of the links between the rise in human wealth and power on the one hand, and the alternations and loss of fish habitat on the other. So the fish, in my eyes, was not a mythical fish. It was actually a part of the creation. Thus, the eco-catastrophism is strongly demonstrated. Indeed, the colorful parts of this story reflect German Romanticism. They might be added German Romanticism. They might be added by the painter Otto Runge, who heard the story near the Baltic Sea and wrote it down for the Grimm brothers. Despite this possible situation, it is not possible, it's a real situation, many similar motives of the climate changes caused by human greed have been found in other versions, which suggests that the main motive is not just a psychology of the human-wife relationships, as claimed by a majority of folklorists, but also how human and nature interact. Even though the collectors added some embellishment, the people who wrote and edited such wonder tales 2 or even 4 centuries ago might be credited with being the protagonist of the thinking about destructive effects of unrestricted economic and political power over nature and how that affects people in the long run. Many people agree that there are many other examples from the Grimm Brothers collection. I counted perhaps 100. It's half of the collection that actually wrote about the interconnectedness between protagonists, between the hero or heroine with the nature. You will perhaps remember the so-called animal helpers who helped the hero to get the final good result and so on. Many people agree that the development of symbolic communication was a unique stage in the history of human thought and development of consciousness, as well as in each person's spiritual growth. In addition to being able to recognize separate symbols, which is a quality that some other species share, Homo sapiens has also developed complex way to combine symbols into a more complex shapes and even to transfer these ideas across distances and cultures. And fairy tales are one of the tools, or wonder tales are one of the tools with which we are transferring such ideas. At this point, I would like to highlight another psychological aspect of the wonder tales. As we all know, most of the stories include a protagonist and antagonist. The 12 months, you remember, we saw the good Marushka and evil Helena. The fishing family story depicts, on the one hand, a stoic fisherman whose characteristics resemble somehow to the modern environmental advocacy. You will read the story afterwards, I believe. On the other hand, his wife is obviously greedy. But as developmental psychologists have learned and continue to teach us, it is not about two characters, a good hero and a bad anti-hero, but about the internal split of ourselves within our one person and how each of us is thinking. I believe this internal dissection, this dualism, and the confusion about what is important and what is not, what is good and what is not, in man's relationship with the rest of nature is perhaps the most serious problem in addressing contemporary environmental challenges. The mentioned texts, in terms of their profound spiritual depth and intricate multi-layered structure, even surpass, I believe, many contemporary, somehow simplified environmental efforts, being short-term technical solutions, political agreements or disagreements, perhaps simplified teaching and school programs, and also, in many occasions, oversimplified printed books with tales targeted at children. In conclusion, I believe that the vast pool of narrative tradition contains a tremendous spiritual potential. Technical, declarative, and political solutions are rarely mentioned. Instead, these stories focus on the subtle, personal aspects of the human-nature relationship. Characters experience the majority of their struggles happened internally. A small act of kindness or generosity not only help the story to the happy solution, but about this, to the establishment of an essential and sustainable connection with other beings and environment. Human attitudes towards sustainability are, as recognized from these ancient motifs and behaviors of the wonder tale characters, would thus be to listen and observe, to comprehend the message, to share and exchange goods, and let the heavens go their own way of processes towards the future living ever after. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dobravec. We have lost 4 minutes. Which questions are you?
Thank you very much. It was really interesting. My profession is I am cultural anthropologist, so I appreciated your approach. I would like to ask, do you see any possibility to use these examples, tales in education to help the environmental awareness of children?
Yes, I do. I actually prepared some additional slides, but I will not show them now. But I think that there are some concrete situations in tales that can be used for possible for the possible educational use, let's say, insufficient knowledge about natural processes, is written in The Frog Prince, and many other somehow simplified, let's say, these categories. Species extinction leads to distress in ecological imbalance, and you can see these examples are all from the Grimm, well-known Grimm fairy tales or concept. I think such a spreadsheet might be useful for educational purposes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there new tales, like, for example, in Slovenia about climate change or other environmental issues? Recent tales, I mean.
I'm actually disappointed by many new books that exist now on the market. And in comparison to such wisdom of the old motifs, from the old motifs, I believe that modern writers are perhaps should be more informed about the culture we already grown up from. We grown from.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if there are some differences between nations and between languages. I think it's all over the Europe or the Western world that there are not such deep stories for children as they are this.
Thank you.
Thank you for your talk. Just a question. What is like the specialty of these wonder tales, you would say? What's their essence that makes them so approachable to the question of sustainability? Do you think there is some kind of indigenous knowledge hidden, or what makes them so special for the use for the discussion on sustainability?
Yes. First of all, I think that those parts that are talking about interconnectedness between heroes and the natural world is somehow neglected in European culture. This is the first. The second is that I believe that it must be a kind of proto-environmental ethics, because before we Europeans invented ethics, I believe it must exist. It must be something before that. And before humanism, before enlightenment, let's say, I believe people live with nature, more tightly with nature. So the nature was part of their life. And if it was a part of their life, they had to transfer the ideas or the ethics, the proto-ethics, from generation to generations, and they perhaps, I believe, they used fairy tales to do this. This is my idea, thesis. And unfortunately it is absolutely neglected. Nobody knows that, let's say, Cinderella planted a tree and nurse and raised it, and precisely on that tree the birds nested, and that birds tell the prince which princess is the right one. Do you remember Cinderella's story? Have you noticed the tree and the birds?
Not really. In the Grimm's version, I think there is no planting of a tree.
Which one?
There is no planting of a tree mentioned.
Really, no?
In the Grimm's version, no. There are doves that can say that there is
No tree.
Yeah.
There are about.
To check it.
Huh? Yeah, we should check it. Yes, I think there are 1,000 variants of Cinderella. So.
Okay. Can we stop here?
Thank you.
Very, very much. Thank you.